after this. Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody to the first workshop in our fall workshop series. This is for the CAE-CD Community of Practice Initiative for New and Early Career Faculty. My name is Paige Zalepa Flores. I co-chair this with Gretchen Bliss. I'm from Towson and she's from UCCS in Colorado. Our first presenters this semester, we have Satch and Rene, who will be talking about generative AI and teaching. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them to get us started on this very exciting topic.
Thank you, Paige. Hello, everyone. I'm Satch, and as Paige said, we're going to be talking about AI for teaching. Just before we get started, I think it's really important to first talk about the workforce in cybersecurity, because at the end of the day, we are doing this to get bodies in the workforce. And for that, I'm going to let Zoe take over.
Thanks, Satch. So I'm Zoe Fowler. I work within the CAE, and we've had a lot of focus recently on competency. Competency is about building those bridges, building those connections between the knowledge and skills which we're giving to our students and their ability to do tasks within the context of a work role. So everything we do kind of hangs either on this NICE framework, which Satch is scrolling through, or on the DCWF framework. One of the interesting things as we start to look at generative AI is that we really don't know how it's going to unfold. My colleague Vincent Nestler, who's been leading a lot of work in competency in CAE community, has been doing some interesting analysis using AI himself to look at which of these work roles potentially will be able to be done through machine learning moving forwards, and what the implications of that would be for the human workforce. He's showing that a lot of the technical potentially can be done by a machine learning model. However, what the AI doesn't seem to be able to do at the moment, or potentially is unable to do, is to emulate those human skills, that collaboration, that ability to communicate effectively to different audiences, the idea of being able to problem solve, moving more into that interesting outlier type of thinking, which is so critical for cybersecurity, rather than always tending towards the middle. So in a way, the model of competency which we're using in CAE community, which is based around an A, B, C, D, E model, with that E being employability, being the human, seems to be becoming more important in the light of changes around generative AI, as opposed to less important. If we're anticipating within the workforce that much of technical is going to be able to be done effectively by machines, but the human element can't be. We need to think about competency as that interaction and that employability. So in relation to that, the competency statements like a part of the redesignation. We're about to launch a video in St. Louis, Missouri in a couple of weeks at the NCAT conference. That really, it offers a 14-minute overview of the approach to competency within CAE community. We'll also absolutely be delighted to be holding 2 half-day training sessions at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, with our amazing colleague Gretchen Bliss. That's going to take place in November 13th or November 14th. People would only need to attend one or the other of those half-day workshops. The application process for that will be launched next week, and you'll be able to find that on the CAE website. We're going to be talking about it a lot. We do have a closing date for applications early in October. So if you're interested in coming to those workshops, you need to apply quite quickly. Keep an eye on that website. We'll also be doing trainings in March on competency at the Citadel as part of CAE Symposium. And hot off the press, we're also going to be doing some training at St. Mary's College in San Antonio in February. So they're going to be announced formally later on, but certainly we're lining up this Colorado Springs in November. So competency is still very much a hot topic here. And I hope that didn't take up too much time, Satch.
No, I think it's all very necessary and something that we all need to be aware of. I'm actually going to be at NCEC next month, so hope to see some of you there. Anyway, time for the workshop. So um, before we get started, I want to talk about a couple of incidents that happened that really inspired this workshop. The first of two incidents was an energy scam that got me thinking about how important context is. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a screenshot of a group chat that I have with my roommates, and we were supposed to have our utility provider visit the apartment in lieu of high charges over the summer. You know, it's hot, we're using air conditioners, and so you expect bills to be high. But we thought, let's get our meter checked out anyway. And so we schedule a visit, and what ends up happening is the rep never actually shows up. Instead, someone trails the rep, waits to see if the rep is able to conclude his visit and enter the apartment, notices that they're not able to do it, and then impersonates them. And so this is a message from my roommate where he says, yes, he came right now, but he didn't check the system. Instead, he enrolled us in Arcadia's solar power program. He said that all the neighbors are getting high bills, so we're enrolling everyone. And this to me immediately was suspicious, which, if you are receiving a service from someone, you would not expect for them to enroll you in another service because you're already experiencing issues with the pre-existing one. I don't know. That's how my brain works. I don't know if everyone else thinks that way, but I look at the forms he's signed and the details he's given them, and it becomes clear to me very quickly that this person is not who they said they were, and this was a different person than the one that was intended, that we intended to be speaking to. All in all, not too much damage. We just gave them a lot of information, and we were able to cancel the service before we faced any charges. So that was okay. However, this second story was not so good. This happened to a friend of mine, and she's still devastated from this incident. In early, I want to say March of this year or April, around the time we have tax season, she receives a phone call from someone claiming to be from US Customs, and they state to her that she is in violation of her visa status because she hasn't filed her taxes, and so now there is an arrest warrant out for her. And obviously, she's really worried and she's freaking out. And she's like, "Hey, I don't want to go to jail. I'm not a criminal. What do I need to do?" And they say, "Okay, well, you need to fill out a bunch of forms and give us a bunch of information and money so that we can make this go away." I think she mentioned lawyer fees, some type of registration fees, some type of late fees. And so she calls me and she says, "Hey, it's really urgent. I need $3,000. I cannot tell you what it is for, but I will get it back to you in 24 hours." And now I really trust this friend, but when someone calls you and asks you for money and says they're going to give it back to you in 24 hours, you should be asking questions. Which I didn't do. It was my fault. I didn't do it. But I also didn't give her the money. About 2 to 3 days later, she visits me and she says that, "Hey, actually, I lost $18,000, not 3,000. Yes, $18,000, and not $18,000 of her own money. she had to ask a bunch of people for money to make this go away because she thought she was going to jail. And so the reason I'm telling you this story is because both of these people in both of these stories are not just real people, not just my friends, my roommates, but they're technical people. My roommate is a software engineer, and this happened to him. You would think that he would be averse to these kinds of things. And my friend who lost $18,000, she is a data scientist. So again, a very accomplished person and someone who knows their way around a computer, around technology, and you still see that they're vulnerable to these kinds of things. And so, what's really important to understand is that context is key here. If you mention something important enough to anyone, right? We all have these triggers that's gonna, have us put our guard down because we would rather be too careful than not and have to pay a heavy price after. So, I would listen to a phone call where somebody says, "Hey, I haven't filed my taxes," or "I need to be filling out some form that I haven't filled out." Because if it was already on my mind before and someone brings it up, I'm gonna think that it's a legitimate question or request. Um, and so, in the context of small businesses, we're looking at how much cybersecurity actually costs, right, in terms of not having it. And we see this is from 2019. I'm sure it's way above that number now. But on average, it costs companies $200,000. And if you're a small business, that's a significant chunk of your revenue, and that can put you out of business. So I got to thinking, and I was like, how can we use these contextual cues? When we have them for individuals, why can't we have them for small businesses? And if we have tools like ChatGPT and we have open source frameworks available to us for these kinds of exercises, why not take advantage of them? So that's what I plan to do today with this workshop, which is really to design a contextual phishing solution for the modern small business environment. And so we'll use ChatGPT as a form for context generation, and then we'll piggyback off of pre-existing legitimate requests for information that you would see, again, depending on the context, right? And I'll tell you what I mean by that when we get there. Um, and finally, the technical implementation of this will be through GoFish, which is an open source framework. And we will be using the cloud to build all of this. So that's a little bit of a background on what we're doing and why we're doing. Um, do we have any questions so far? If anyone wants to know, both of those stories are 100% true. I did not make those up. And that's why I have the screenshots to back them up. Okay. Have I experienced any AI calls? Not really. Those would be interesting. Um, so anyway, for the first part, we need to set up our environment that's going to actually host the GoFish tool. And for that, we're going to be using Linode. So, and by the way, I'm going to drop links to everything in the slides as well as the commands that I'm going to be using, so that if you just want to watch it right now and follow along after, it's going to be much easier for you to do it that way. So the first thing we're going to do is create the node, and we're going to use uh, one that's accessible to us. This distribution should be just fine, Debian 11. I'm based in New Jersey, so I'm gonna choose this as my region. We don't really need a really powerful instance, so we're just gonna use the dedicated 4 GB. That's $36 a month. Um, and then let's just give it a name. I'm gonna call it Go Fish VM. And obviously, we're going to need a password, because once this cloud instance is up and running, we're going to need a way to connect to it, and we're going to use SSH for that. So let's just give it a and that's about it. I'm not going to worry about keys and VPCs and firewalls. Um, we're just going to go ahead and create. I believe someone's raised their hand. Yes, Litany, do you have a question?
I don't. Looks like she unraised her hand.
Okay.
Mm.
Just out of interest, how many of you are attempting to do this with me today? And how many of you are just watching, plan to do it afterwards?
I think there's a cost to this. So before I start doing it with a cost, I think I'm going to watch first.
Yep, that's a good idea. And Rene is going to talk about how you can circumvent those costs. And that's really what this is all about, which is making this accessible to everyone. Um, and so he's going to talk about using VMs that you're able to get access to through school, using Hyper-V. I did have one of my students try that, and it worked for him. So um, that's a really important consideration. Okay, so once our machine's up and running, what we're going to need to do is actually install the Go Fish tool onto it. And we're going to do that remotely by running some commands. So let me just open a terminal. Okay. All right, so the first thing we want to do is SSH into our VM, and we do that by just copying the SSH command we see on the Cloud Linode website. It's going to ask us if we're sure, yes, and then it's going to ask for a password. Enter that. Okay, and we're in. Now let's update and upgrade our repos before we install Gofish. So that would be sudo apt get update and sudo apt get upgrade. Okay, so the next thing we want to do before we install Gofish is install an unzipper, because you'll see when we download Gofish that it is going to be on our machine in zip form. So we do need a tool for that. Install unzip. All right, now we're almost ready. I'm just going to make a directory for Gofish and then cd into that. Okay. Oh. All right. So now what we want to do is navigate to the GitHub repository for Gofish. Let me just find that for you real quick. So for anyone that's following along, I'm just gonna have that in the chat. So you just want to scroll all the way to, yep, right here somewhere. Yep, right here. And depending on whatever you're using, if you're using Windows, you copy this, Mac OS that, and Linux. So I'm using Linux. I'm just going to copy the link to this, and we're going to go back to our terminal. Okay, and we're just going to do wget and then paste the link. Okay, so now that we have the zip file, we need to unzip it. Just check if we have it. Oops. Yep, we do. So let's unzip. Go and then tab to autocomplete. All right. Now what we need to do is, because we're having this run on a machine in the cloud, and we're accessing it remotely, we also need a graphical interface for our to access the admin interface of this tool. And so what we're going to need is to have access to it over the internet. So what I'm going to do really quickly is edit this configuration file and I'm just going to change this listen URL to 0.0.0.0. Yeah, this is just so that we can access it over the internet. Yeah, Control X, Y, enter. All right. Okay, we're pretty much done. The final step is to turn this into an executable. So we do sudo chmod plus x and go fish. All right, and I think we should be good to go. Let's just test it. Sudo no slash goldfish, and we're up and running. Great, wonderful. So what you're going to see here is a bunch of information about where you can see the server, where you can access the admin panel, the default password. So I'm just going to copy this password and we're going to go back to our browser. I can find it. There we go. All right, and we want to go to this link, 23.92.17.234. Okay. HTTPS slash 41333. All right, connection is not private. You can visit this website anyway. That's what I want to do. And I'm just going to paste the password. And it's going to ask me to reset it, create my own. All right. Okay, so now that we're in, this is what's going to act as our, well, not act, but it is our admin panel. This is where we send our phishing campaign out through. In here, we can enter in a bunch of users and put them in groups. So again, if you're a company that's providing this as a service, and you need to group them based on a team that they work for or a particular project that they're working on, this is a really great little trick. We also have email templates, so you can create and save particular templates for particular products that people use. And then we have the landing page over here. So that would be the actual link that the victim would click on. Where would it take them to, and what would that look like? So this is where we would design that. And this is a sending profile. So this would be the profile of the user that's sending the phishing email. So that's a little bit about the platform. Now, what I really want to do before we get into the tool is move over to the AI element of this. So going back to context generation, I think a good way to prompt the model and to try to talk to it is by giving it a bunch of parameters and asking it to stick to those when it's creating a phishing email or is creating a form for you. So what I went ahead and did is asked ChatGPT to pretend they're a world-class phishing expert and then ask them to develop sophisticated campaigns with a call to action inside of the mail or the content of the email that would target small business owners on only three pieces of information. The first would be their age, the second would be their business occupation, and the third would be their region. And so one idea of doing this is to avoid any kind of hallucination that you would see from the model. And so I've tried it with 4 or 5, and it works just fine. But I think anything beyond that, and you're asking for too much. But I think for this example, 2 or 3 is good. And I encourage you all to try this out, right? Give it this boilerplate prompt, and then you just offer it the 3 pieces of information, and it'll come up with something incredible, right? As you can see in my case. So what I did was I picked a business that is, I want to begin to say now, near and dear to my heart, because I go there every day to get my morning coffee, and I'm really familiar with everyone that works there. And so I said, hey, here's the first one. This is a business owner that is about 39 years old. He is a coffee shop owner, and he is located in the Newark, New Jersey area. Um, and the model tells me here, okay, great, this is an email. And then not only that, they have the same thing in a phone call version of it. So you have a phone call script as well. If if you really want to try that angle. I know somebody was talking about AI phone calls earlier. Um, and I think Paige just asked the question, how do you work in the ethics of using tools like this when you're introducing them to students? I think that's a really good question. I like to first focus on the creative element of this, but I think focusing on ethics needs to come before that, where you really explain to the student that there's boundaries that you cannot extend. And one of them is doing this for nefarious purposes. Again, the whole idea behind coming up with this design and proof of concept was to verify a intuition that I had regarding whether or not this can be a business, I truly think this is a service that a lot of people need. And I think that students that are starting out in cybersecurity should be doing this, or at least trying to, just to educate and spread awareness about phishing and social engineering schemes. If not to business owners, then to family and friends. And this is a really, uh, I want to say cost affordable, but you could also say free way to go about doing this. Yeah, so as you can see here, the email says, hey, we hope this email finds you well. As a valued member of Newark's vibrant small business community, we are excited to inform you about a special grant program specifically tailored for local coffee shop owners like yourself. The Newark Small Business Growth Initiative is offering grants of up to $15,000 to support the expansion and improvement of small coffee shops in our area. This program aims to help businesses like yours thrive and continue to be a cornerstone of our community. Um, and so you can see if I owned a coffee shop and I believed that I was bringing value to the community and I was well known in the community, I would expect to receive an email like this and not think twice about what this really is. And if it's just asking me to fill out a form, I could also think, okay, it's just a mundane marketing scheme for something. It may not be a phishing email, right? So that's another thing to consider, right? Which is how thin the line is between unwanted marketing and genuine phishing attempts. Um, so this is I think a really good one, but I thought about a few more ideas, right? One example could be let's try to really understand how this business runs and what they rely on, right? Because it's a coffee shop and because they specialize in Portuguese snacks and goods, they might have a region where they source their coffee grounds from. Maybe it's in Latin America, and maybe we can look for businesses in Latin America that actually source grounds for coffee shops all over the US, and maybe we could impersonate them. Perhaps they have a newsletter, and maybe we could use that as our template to send this out. So you can get very creative and detailed with this, but I think for this demo, it's helpful to not try to go too deep into it, um, and just develop our POC. And so the next step for me really was, okay, great, I'm happy with the email. But what I really need is a form where I'm going to get this information from the victim or from the user. And so what I said was, great, now generate HTML code for this eligibility form that can be used for the campaign. And so we're just going to copy this code over, and I'm going to try to take a look over here. You can see I already have it up here, but just to show you, it's the same code. And you can see it looks kind of similar to a Google form, but not really. And again, this is just one prompt. I haven't even tried to tweak it. You can see it's all part of the same conversation. So if it's able to give me something like this in my first or second prompt, what could maybe, two or three or four attempts of really thinking about this and putting it together give me? And again, maybe I could add a logo, all kinds of things to this form. But we really have enough here now to go back to the tool and construct our email, right? We have the actual content of the email that's right here. And we also have a form that they're going to see when they click on our phishing link. So let's just get back to the tool. The first thing we want to do is create a new group. This would be our group of target users. So normally what you'd want to do is target everyone whose data you already have access to. So email addresses of everyone that works at the small business or at the community organization, whoever ends up being your target. So in my case, it's the coffee shop. So I'll be targeting the owner of the coffee shop. And so this is where their email would go. Now, I'm obviously not going to enter their email. I'm going to enter my own because, I like my freedom and I would like to keep it. So yes, please get permission before trying any of this. I'm also going to give it a name. Let's call it test group 1. Make sure my email is correct. Yep. Add, save changes. The way we use this in my program is a section on social engineering in our applied CS course. We have them build a QR phishing flyer, place around, track how many, which takes the user to a cyber hygiene site, track sanitized data, whatever page gets on. Okay. Wow, that's very interesting. Okay, so we have our test group in. The next thing that we're going to do is build out our email. So what's interesting with Gofish is you can actually import um, email templates. So let's say you have an email from WordPress or from Facebook or from some other large organization. You could just copy the source code of that email and then paste it in here, and you would have a very professional looking email that looks exactly like an email from Facebook um, in here. So we're not going to do that because the whole point of this exercise is to use AI to do it and not to just copy something off of Facebook or some other site because that wouldn't be serving our purpose of really trying to build a bespoke solution for small businesses. So I'm going to call this one, and this is going to be the email address of the sender. So I have an email set up. Um, my advice is if you're trying this out, try to use an email that does not have two-factor authentication set up. And the reason is you're going to be launching the campaign and it's going to need an email address to send those phishing emails from. And obviously, if you give it your password, it's going to be able to log in. But if it requires two-factor authentication, it's going to fail. So Gmail addresses are probably not going to work for you because um, they require it. So I'm using Outlook. You could use anything else that works for you. You could just make one up right now. Okay, so that's my email address. The subject line would be this one here, important notice. And we're just gonna place our text in here. Okay. I'm gonna have to give it a name, so let's just call him Gonzalo. Gonzalo, we hope this email finds you well. Also gonna place a link here for our call to action. Um, and this is the place where we'll actually place our phishing link. So what I'm doing here is just selecting here, clicking on the link button, and we're gonna enter our URL afterwards. So let's just have this as a placeholder here. Once we set up the landing page, that's what this is going to redirect it to. So let's have that here. Okay. And that's our email ready. Now we need to design our landing page. So let's just make one. Again, let's just take the code that we have here from ChatGPT, just copy that, and then take it over here, paste it, and you see, that's our form. It's the form we just came up with. Okay, so SMB grant form. And we're going to say, yes, we want to capture submitted data. The cool thing here is they also have a redirect option. So as I was explaining earlier, if you have a tool like, if you're copying the email from an email that you've received from WordPress, Facebook, Instagram, or some other well-known entity, and you want to impersonate them, the amazing thing is, let's say you have an email from WordPress and the user clicks on the phishing link and they receive a page that has some kind of form or just a login form, right? A WordPress login form, but the URL is obviously not WordPress. What it's going to do is after the user enters their credentials, it's going to redirect them to the actual WordPress page. So not only is it capturing credentials, but it's trying to fool the user by getting them to think that, oh, okay, if I check the domain afterwards, if let's say suddenly they don't notice this 23.9, and they enter their credentials, hit enter, it's going to redirect them to whatever website you want to send them to, right? So if we want to send them to Facebook, it's going to do that, or WordPress, it's going to do that here. I'm not going to do that because we aren't pretending to be WordPress or Facebook. But if you wanted to, that's how you do that. Okay, we have our ground form ready. And the next thing we need to do is get the sending profile set up. All right. So this is really the final step before we launch our campaign up here. So this profile is going to need a name. So I'm just going to call it John Doe. Well, let's call it John Doe. And it's going to need an email address. So at outlook.com, and give it another name, Doe. And over here, it's asking you the about the SMTP host for the email. So because I'm using Outlook, I'm just going to look up Outlook SMTP host. And this would be the one for me. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm also going to copy the port number and just enter it in there, 587. And this is the username and the password for the email address, right? So that would be Fitchsim 2024 and then the password. Okay. You can also just send a test email. We don't need to, but if you wanted to, you would be able to do it through here. Okay, if everything looks good, we save our profile and we're about ready to launch our campaign. Okay, so let's create this new campaign. We will call it the Portuguese Coffee Shop Adventure. And we have a template here. We have the form here. And this is going to be the URL. So this is going to be the URL to our actual VPS. So that would be http:// and then 23.92.17.234. And one thing to note, when you're sending it and you need to enter a launch date, try to enter a time of maybe like a couple hours before. So I'm on the East Coast, so it's currently close to about 1. I'm just gonna say send it at 11 a.m. Somehow that there's some issues with the platform where sometimes if you don't do that, it just takes forever to send. Um, And yeah, finally we choose our profile that we're sending the email from, and then our group of users that we wish to target. And if you have everything set up this way, just make sure that the SMTP stuff is configured correctly, because if you don't have it right, you can receive errors. I was receiving errors recently when I was trying it, so just make sure you double check that. Okay, we launch our campaign and it's scheduled, and now we wait. It usually takes a while to get it out to the users, but that's why I have a video where we can actually look at the outcome of what this looks like. Because I'm not sure I want to keep you all waiting on Zoom till this is able to get out to my email address. Okay, so once you have it out, it should say email sent, and then it should provide you with a detailed timeline of when it was opened, when I clicked on the link or when the user clicked on the link, whether or not they submitted data, and if it was reported or not. And so you can see the campaign was created at 7:56. Email got out to the user at about the same time. And this is what it looks like on the receiving end. Now, it is possible to spoof this up here. However, if you try to do that to Gmail addresses, you could get into trouble. But there are tools out there that you can use to spoof it. And so you see here the call to action is right there, complete the preliminary eligibility form. And we have the name of the user and their position out here. So let's say we click on the link and it takes us to this page here. Again, if it was an unsuspecting user that didn't notice the domain name, this would really be a successful attack. But let's say we wanted to deal with that issue as well. Again, you can actually buy a domain name and set it up to make it look legitimate. That is an option here. But again, that's the easy part once you've done all of this. So yeah, we're just seeing what it might look like once the user enters all of their information. We sell Portuguese snacks, Brazilian coffee, delicious bagels. We have some information about how much revenue they made, number of employees. And once they send it, you get to see on the admin user end of Go Fish that, yeah, they actually clicked on the link. And once you refresh it a little bit, you see that they submitted data. And you see that at the bottom right here. Again, we're not sure why all of the data is not shown here. But if you were to try this, it would turn out to be very similar to what you're seeing on the screen here. I also had a version of the email with a little bit of HTML code in the email itself, and not just the link. Let me see if I can show that to you. But yeah, that's about it for my thought of the workshop. I'm gonna let Rene take over and give you a brief rundown on how he thinks we can get this into a classroom and actually help students.
It does look like you have one question in the chat from Jeremy on, do you utilize the SET social engineering toolkit along with AI to help with building the phishing campaign and additional tools to help with AI scripts?
I have not yet, but I do plan to in the future. This is just really a small proof of concept. I know others have done it in the past too, but I just thought with ChatGPT and really just trying to intelligently prompt it to build my custom scenarios was a really cool idea. So yeah. Not yet, but I will. I will definitely try it out, Jeremy.
All right, Satch. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I hope you found Satch's demonstration on setting up a phishing campaign both informative and engaging. He did a fantastic job showing us how we can use how these attacks are crafted and executed. However, there were some concerns regarding the platform he used, which was Linode. Yes, Linode is a paid service. However, most schools do use Microsoft products and will have in them Hyper-V, which you can use in the classroom. And as you saw, he was using the loopback address to basically use the computer he's on to run this program. You simply have to install Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution. It falls under GNU GPL, which is a license that allows anybody who uses the software to use it for free. And anyone who creates a derivative of Linux has to maintain that freedom and cannot charge for it. So the good news is you guys are in the clear for using that for free. And of course, the students can practice these simulations in the course room. There are other VMs that you can use for free, like VirtualBox, and I'll show these things later on. Building on that, I'm going to focus on how we can take these practical insights and incorporate them into our cybersecurity curriculum. The aim is to equip our students with the skills they need, not just to understand phishing attacks, but to be able to identify and defend against them in real life situations. We'll look at different ways to integrate phishing simulation into our courses, whether that is through online modules, in-class activities, or even hybrid formats, so that we're preparing our students with the knowledge and experience they're going to need to succeed in this field. I'm going to go ahead and show a PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully that will help to round out my presentation for you guys. Give me 1 second to share that. All right. Okay, I hope that you guys can see everything. I haven't started the presentation just yet. Okay. All right. So this is phishing, transition from the technical to the pedagogical, so into the classroom. All right. So why are we using phishing simulations in the classroom setting? These exercises are not just about catching students off guard. They're about teaching them to recognize threats in a controlled environment. We can use these simulations to demonstrate the risks, help them understand the tactics used by attackers, and help foster a culture of cybersecurity awareness. The first step that we want to talk about is contextualize. Phishing simulations are helpful in education because they provide students with hands-on experience at spotting fake emails and messages that try to steal their personal information, making theoretical concepts tangible and easier to grasp. By contextualizing these realistic scenarios, students gain important skills to recognize these threats and become better prepared for real-life situations. I noticed that most of you had concerns about the efficacy of learning these tactics. However, keep in mind that as we defend against attacks, we need to understand how these attacks are performed. We learned the safety of using weapons. However, it's the person who chooses whether or not to use that weapon for defense or for criminal activity. Let's go to the second one. All right. So the objective of phishing simulations is to help these students identify phishing attempts. This includes recognizing signs that like strange sender addresses, urgent requests, and suspicious links. It's also important for students to understand how cyber criminals operate, such as using urgency tactics and manipulating their emotional state, which helps them be more careful online. As you notice, sometimes you get emails saying that we have an urgent offer for you, or that you currently have a bill that's due, or an invoice sent through PayPal. These are things that we need to take note of and we need to be careful. There are cases where many schools and universities have successfully included phishing simulation in their programs. For instance, institutions focusing on cybersecurity often use these exercises to improve students' ability to recognize real threats. This approach encourages discussions about online safety and reinforces good practices for staying safe online. So in today's world, right, we have to be aware of cybersecurity threats because that is a crucial ability that we need to develop. Phishing attacks are among the most common threats, targeting individuals and organizations to steal their personal information. To help students combat these risks, educational institutions are incorporating phishing simulations into their courses. These simulations give students practical experience in recognizing phishing attempts, preparing them to navigate the online environment safely. Here are some effective strategies for implementing these simulations in online, in-class, and hybrid formats. In online courses, phishing simulations can be effectively embedded in standalone assignments. Some people have Brightspace and they utilize feedback fruits, which allows them to create on-the-fly ad hoc assignments. This also allows students to engage in discussions at the moment that they're participating in these activities. This approach will allow them to engage in realistic scenarios at their own pace, providing them with the flexibility to explore the material thoroughly. By navigating through these simulations, students gain firsthand experience in identifying phishing tactics in a controlled environment. After completing the simulations, students can be encouraged to reflect on their experiences by participating in discussion questions and discussion strategies for recognizing phishing attempts in real-world situations. These collaborative reflection not only deepens their understanding, but also fosters a sense of community amongst the learners. In-class activities, conducting live phishing simulations like Satch just showed us during a class session provides an interactive and engaging learning experience. Students will respond to fake phishing attempts in real time, which adds an element of urgency and realism to the exercise. This hands-on approach helps reinforce the skills needed to identify potential threats. Following the live simulation, facilitate group discussions to analyze the outcomes and key lessons learned. Encourage the students to express their thoughts on what they observed during the exercise, including the tactics used and their own reactions. This reflective discussion is crucial for reinforcing their understanding and allowing them to share best practices for recognizing phishing attempts. A hybrid format can be highly effective in combining online simulations and in-person with in-person follow-up instructions, right, or sessions. In this modality, students complete phishing simulations online before gathering in class for the discussions. This blending of formats provides the best of both worlds, individual exploration and collaborative learning. Use the in-person sessions to review the results of the simulation and address any common challenges that students faced. This setting allows for a richer dialogue where students can share their insights and strategies for spotting phishing attempts. By learning from each other's experiences, they enhance their cybersecurity skills, and develop a more robust understanding of that topic. This comprehensive approach ensures that students are better prepared to handle real-world phishing threats. So what are some of the practical benefits of using a phishing simulation? By using phishing simulations, we give students a safe way to experience what a phishing attack looks like. By mimicking real-world scenarios like fake emails, malicious links, these exercises help students learn to recognize the warning signs without any real-world risk. This hands-on practice is key to building confidence in spotting threats. Repeated exposure to different phishing scenarios helps students identify red flags like suspicious emails and urgent requests more quickly. This process builds better habits and makes them more cautious and aware of cybersecurity threats overall. With phishing simulations, we can track how well students respond to these exercises. We can see who clicked on a simulated phishing link and who reported it. These metrics show us where more training is needed and allow us to measure progress over time. By identifying students who may struggle with phishing attempts, we can provide additional targeted training. This approach helps reduce the risk of falling for real attacks and strengthens the overall security awareness of the group. Phishing simulations are a proactive way to train students and employees with the high cost of dealing with an actual breach. The value here is in preventing incidences before they actually happen, which can save a significant amount of time and money. Regular phishing simulations can help build a security-first culture. When students regularly engage in these exercises, they become more vigilant and proactive about cybersecurity. This shift in their mindset encourages everybody to be more aware and prepared in their daily activities. When it comes to teaching, visuals play a crucial role in making complex information more accessible. Start by using infographics. Infographics are a great way to simplify complex information and make it more accessible to the students. You can use them to show statistics, like how often phishing attacks happen, the type of attacks students should be aware of, and the impact of these threats. This sets the stage for why phishing education is important. Next, think about using data visualizations like charts and graphs to present the results of phishing simulations. These visuals can show how well students are identifying phishing attempts, highlight common mistakes, and track improvements over time. This approach makes data more meaningful and can help you pinpoint areas that need more attention. When you present this information to your students, make it engaging. Use presentations that combine these infographics and data visualizations with key points you want to emphasize. You could even include a short video clip or animations that explain phishing tactics. The goal is to keep the content dynamic and relatable so students stay interested and retain the information. I incorporate these tactics in my own classrooms, and I have a great turnout in my classrooms. I've had other professors in the following classrooms come over to me and ask me how I'm managing to keep a high attendance rate. I simply use sources like Clark Center, emates.org, my emates.org, and even YouTube to present the informatics and the data visualization aspects. So when you present this to them, you're going to make it more engaging. Use presentations that combine both of the things together and make sure that the goal is to keep the content dynamic. Another effective tool is a flowchart. A flowchart can help map out the entire process of incorporating phishing simulations into your course, from planning and executing the simulations to assessing and providing feedback. This visual guide will help the students see the full picture and understand how each step fits into their learning process. So one great way of doing this is either using Lucid Art, or I think it's called Lucid Chart. That's the one. Or you can use the chalkboard and just draw out the process. Finally, showing screenshots of the phishing simulation interface or actual examples of phishing emails can be very impactful. This gives students a clear idea of what to expect and helps them visualize the scenarios they encounter. By using these visuals and presenting them in a structured, engaging way, you'll help your students build a solid understanding of phishing threats and how to handle them. Remember, here's some tips that you want to take along with this advice. Ensure that the visuals align with the overall theme of your presentation for a cohesive look. Keep visuals simple and easy to understand. Avoid clutter that can distract them from the main points. Engagement, right? We want to encourage the audience to interact with us with the visuals by asking questions and prompting discussions around them. Don't have them just saying, hey, I have a question, and say, hold on to the end of the discussion. And stopping to ask them, does anyone have questions, unfortunately, sometimes shies away from the reality of what we're talking about. So best thing for you to do is prompt a question and then ask each group by separating the classroom on what their overall outcome for that discussion is, and then have them discuss it with each other. Now, you have some key takeaways from this discussion. Phishing simulations give students hands-on experience in spotting and handling threats. Let's recap on that, right? So it's a valuable tool. It provides students with experience in a safe environment, and it helps them in recognizing and responding to these cyber threats. We also talked about the visuals and helping complex information clearer and easier to remember. I encourage you to start integrating phishing simulations into your courses and to use the visual strategies we discussed to enhance your presentations. Collaborating with colleagues can also help all of us share ideas and resources. So, what are your thoughts about my strategies? Have you tried any of these strategies before? Want to see if anybody has anything to say about it. Sorry, I'm like closing in on my windows here.
Great additions, Rene.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to show real quick, briefly, just a couple of things that might be useful and kind of giving an idea of what I was talking about. I like to make sure I give students and anybody I'm talking to an idea of what I was referring to. So let me go ahead and share this next. Okay. I believe I'm sharing it now. Am I sharing it? Yes. Okay. So here's an example from CISA, a phishing informatic, right? So this is an informatic where it makes content easy to understand. It breaks down the complex topics and makes it something engaging, right? So we look at this and we don't get confused. We don't look at it as a complex topic. We can see it and kind of get drawn to it. So you can see that this is an example of an informatic. We also have things like this, right? Simple informatics that looks almost like an advertisement and instead just gives you some useful tools or information that the student can actually understand. This here is an example of a chart for data visualization. We show statistics by giving an example and comparing it to other metrics. For example, in this case, we are looking at phish-prone percentage over the server or over certain months on 9.5 million users. So this is just giving you an example. Now, I'm not sure if KnowBe4 shows anymore, but they'll show things like this. KnowBe4 is also a company that will test their employees at a certain university. For example, the university does have to pay for this. Well, they'll send you a simulated phishing email. And if you fail them too many times, you may have to go through a cybersecurity training. I'm not sure if this affects your job, if you might lose it, but in some companies, unfortunately, you can lose your job if you fail these phishing attempts too often. And KnowBe4 does send them quite often to me. Now, another resource that you can go to for learning about phishing tactics, and I actually teach this in my cybersecurity classes, is myemates.org. I'm going to go ahead and put the link right there inside the chat. Oh, I send it to just one person. Let me make sure I send it to everybody. All right. I'm going to type it again, myemates.org. And that's one location. So I go in here and I usually do the phishing mystery where at least they'll know about the different kinds of phishing attacks. This is a fairly straightforward game where you click on a fish and you can read out the different kinds of phishing attacks. Phishing, smishing, phishing, spear phishing, whale phishing. It just goes on, and even angular phishing. So as you go through this, they'll have a questionnaire at the end and we'll try to figure out some answers that you can go ahead and test your students on their knowledge or have them discuss in groups which one they have maybe experienced and share their own experiences on that. I tend to share my own experiences with phishing attacks. I tend to keep a folder of, phishing attacks, images of them, and I show them in my class. Then you also have the Clark.Center location, which has nice curriculum on phishing. I encourage my students to come here and take a look at this, which is awesome. It's not the greatest, Jeremy, but KnowBe4, at least it's something, right? It's at least it's better than nothing, and it helps because the organization does send out simulated phishing emails to employees on a monthly basis. So it's great to see that at least we're catching some adjunct faculty or anybody who works at the college who may not be paying attention to these things. So, like I said, this is a great location for cybersecurity phishing emails and phishing curriculum. And then, of course, if you want to implement these in a free manner and not use something like Linode, which does cost money, you may want to go ahead and encourage students to download VirtualBox on their personal computers. A lot of students don't have the pro version of Windows, and so they can go ahead and download this for the Mac OS or even Windows host and install it and run a virtual VM. Now, of course, their processor needs to be able to handle virtualization, so that would be a different discussion altogether. However, most schools do have Hyper-V, and this is what it looks like. And Hyper-V, I use it all the time in some of my other courses, and you can run it just like you saw Satch do. You run it over here. It's pretty much in most colleges, so you talk to your ID department. And if you're wondering, do they need access to the internet? They should be able to have the same access that they currently have in the classrooms. They simply need to install a distribution of Linux, and then they can go ahead and install GoFish and practice these simulations that you saw Satch do. All right, and I think that takes care of my portion of the presentation. I'd like to ask if anyone has questions, but I see a lot of people are active on the chat here. But if you have questions, feel free to speak up. I would like to hear from you. Anybody?
I'll go ahead and speak up. This is Jeremy Hoffman with the Des Moines Area Community College. I recommend using VMware Workstation over VirtualBox. Broadcom has just made it free for everyone. So you just create a Broadcom account and you can get it for free. There's also, it always escapes me and I'll remember it after, but there's the UK company that does virtualization that a lot of places are switching to, especially if you have NetLab appliances, you'll be switching to that virtualization platform because VMware no longer has the free VMware Academy since Broadcom took it over. So the licenses for ESXi are now, you have to purchase licensing for it.
So here's the thing. If you're using ESXi, which is VMware, right? Basically, things like that in the Broadcom, are they difficult to use? Do they have a high learning curve?
VMware Workstation Pro, no.
No, for the Broadcom one.
No, it's still VMware.
Oh, okay.
But it's still VMware Workstation. It's just that they've made it free. It used to be something that you'd have to get through the VMware Academy for students. You'd issue a license to them for a year. They've just gone ahead and made that desktop virtualization. It's called Desktop Hypervisor if you're looking for it on VMware.com.
Can you provide the link for that?
Yep, I can provide a link. It adds a lot more functional utility than VirtualBox. It adds the ability to add multiple networks. You can work within several different clustered networks which communicate to others. This is especially important if you're teaching like ethical hacking, where you teach pivoting and other things that you don't want on your main network, but you still need, say, NAT access with your Kali box for updated tools. Um, VirtualBox to create virtual networks, it's much, much more convoluted and not quite as straightforward. If you install VMware tools on any of your stuff, which is the OpenVM tools installation on any of them, it has much, much more granular control, and because it's free, it's more aligned with what the pro corporate uses. So when students get out into corporate world, they're much more familiar with it.
And I have used the VMware when I worked at an MSP, so I'm familiar with the fact that they do use it. However, what you need to understand is that if you're teaching an entry level cybersecurity course, for example, right, some of the students may not be familiar with networking or VM or virtual machine technology. So getting them on a platform that's easier would actually be probably best to start with, and then encourage them to use it, because otherwise this becomes a whole classroom lesson on VMware and how to set it up. And you'd be surprised how hard it might be for somebody unfamiliar with it to get acclimated to the actual software. So something more simple might work for them. Now, in a classroom setting, unfortunately, especially because I teach at two different colleges, they pretty much stick with Hyper-V. It's just what the college uses. They're on a Microsoft environment, so we have to go with that. We can't just go installing VMware. Now, if it were a higher level course, like for example, one of my network classes, Network Plus or Security Plus, then I would probably encourage them to use that VMware because it makes more sense for them to learn that. But if it was just part of their curriculum and it's just an entry level cybersecurity class, I probably wouldn't do that, just because it would tie up a lot of time, and I'd be more focused on teaching cybersecurity tactics and theoretical side and some application side.
I just want to let you know, you might be thinking like ESXi, like the actual hypervisor. The
Yeah.
desktop hypervisor is literally, it's like VirtualBox, except for clean, and it's super easy to use. It's very intuitive. It's a GUI based app. It's a type 2 hypervisor. It doesn't take anything to train them.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So I would like to look at that actually, because I haven't seen that, because I'm used to the level the type 1 hypervisor for VMware.
Yeah, no, this is a type 2.
Okay, great. So then I would like to look at that.
The link's in the discussion. You just have to create a Broadcom account, and then once you authorize once they send you the email, it's a little convoluted, but you download it for personal. So you download so once you log into your account, you'll see like what hypervisors you have available to you, and download Desktop Hypervisor Workstation Pro personal use, and that's free for life.
Perfect. I like that. So keep in mind, guys, that the whole purpose of our workshop today is between me and Satch is to demonstrate phishing attacks using AI, right? Generated content, right? So we wanted Satch is showing how you can use AI to create these attacks. I mean, it doesn't take much knowledge or effort to develop these landing pages for phishing attacks. And keep in mind that I think it's 96% of web applications on the internet right now are susceptible to cross-site request forgery attacks. So you got a lot of people who go to these websites. They are, basically compelled or kind of tricked into doing or performing actions that they didn't intend, like filling out forms, giving out information, right? And then the hacker doesn't even have to take over your computer. They just simply need you to log into their malicious website, and then on your behalf, they can go ahead and maybe log into your bank account or use your information to commit identity theft. It's just something we need to be more aware of and basically spread that information out, right, in our classes. And my portion was to just show you how you can incorporate it into the classroom discussion, which is not only to perform the simulations, but to also facilitate discussion and engagement. All right. Sash, do you have anything you want to add to this? All right, Paige, I think we've
Not
kind of
really. I just want to say, Rene, like, thank you. I think you did a great job covering the options and really the number of ways you can bring it into the classroom, especially with the discussions and the types, and talking about what students have experienced themselves. I think you summarized all of that really well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I actually want to start incorporating that because I looked at the NICE framework, and I want to basically structure. I actually have been working on structuring an entire cybersecurity lesson plan from beginner to intermediate and advanced levels, using the NICE framework as as a framework for it. So I think it's a great idea because incorporating that, I thought to myself, with the beginner level, we get them used to understanding cybersecurity, getting them familiar to recognizing it. At the intermediate level, we start to get them to applying it and actually creating these attacks. And then at the advanced level, we start to analyze the different attack vectors and try to, go more to the investigative side, right? We want to do that, and then governance and all that good stuff. So hopefully, I can incorporate that kind of discussion into future workshops.
Yeah, the NICE workforce framework, and then also the Department of Defense's DCWF, which is based off of NICE. They are fantastic for kind of introducing students to the breadth of cybersecurity, and then also drilling down to like those things they can actually get paid to do. I use them in my classes, and I think I can connect with some of my students that maybe aren't exactly cyber, but they're going to be doing things related to cyber. And I think Zoe put it in the chat before that it's so important to be teaching things like you guys went over today to our students, and we can tie it right back to the NICE framework, which I think just gives it a little bit more oomph for our students. Somebody else is saying we should learn this and that you should know how to do this too. So awesome job. Okay. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns from the floor before we wrap it up today and thank our presenters? My mentor taught me to count to 10 before I move on. So I've counted to 10 in my head. I hope you all have an excellent Friday. Thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you to Rene and Satch. The presentation will be uploaded on YouTube within the next couple of weeks. I just have to kind of get it over to the CAE group, and then they post it on YouTube for us. So I will send out that link though. As long as you're registered, you will get the link for YouTube if you weren't able to stick around or you had to join late. Okay, well, I will let you all go and give you all 28 minutes back in your day. So I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend. And
Thank you for setting this up.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting this up, guys. All right.
Yeah,
Guys, thank you.
thanks.
And see you later.